Hi, Shay Caldwell again. I'm back for the third part of our argument writing lesson. Now, let's rehash a little bit what we've already learned. We've learned that an argument itself needs an issue or a topic. It needs two different sides, and it needs for you to pick a side, your opinion, based off of the evidence provided. An argument is supposed to be logical, not so much emotional, okay? Logical. What does the science, what does the evidence say um, that would best help you? Uh, what does the evidence say in the passages you've been given that would best help you choose a side? Okay, and support the side that you're writing about. Okay, so then we also learned that there are three different types of arguments that you might have to write about. One would be argument of fact. Does something exist or not? An argument of judgment, whether or not the characteristics that are placed on people or things is that right? Is it valid? Another one, an argument of policy. Is the way that we do something the best way to do it? Okay, so here we go. First thing, now we're getting into the parts of the argument. The parts of the argument. Whenever you actually, it's time to start writing. It's time to start thinking about how you're going to plan out what you're going to write about. And you need to know this saying: Claire eats worms before counting rainbows. Claire eats worms before counting rainbows. Claire eats worms before counting rainbows. This is a very, very silly, ridiculous sentence that my students and I came up with whenever I was in the classroom to help us remember the parts of an argument. Now I'm going to make it make sense. Okay, Claire eats worms before counting rainbows. What does this stand for? Claire is claim. This is another word for your thesis statement. This is the side of the issue you are taking. Okay? And just like a thesis, you have got to decide your claim before you can write anything else. You've got to decide which side you're on before you can ever move forward. Okay? And again, that'll come from the evidence, the passage itself. Okay? Claim. Claire eats. Evidence. Evidence is evidence. What can you pull from the passage that will support what you're saying is true, that will support your claim? Now, your warrant. Warrant is another word. If you're warranting something, you're explaining the reasons. This is another word for your reasoning. You're explaining how and why this evidence that you chose is good evidence. How does it support your side? Whenever you warrant it, this is your reason. Backing. Think of backing as another type of evidence that you will find in the passage if it's there. Because I know that there have been times whenever backing is not there, because backing is research, it's data, it's professional testimony that you will get from your passage that supports your warrant. Okay, if I'm saying in my claim, Colgate's the best toothpaste, not Crest. I'm just making something up. And my evidence is that people who use Colgate have fewer cavities. You know what I mean? Something like that. I warrant it. And I say if they have fewer cavities, then it must be the best. Now, my backing. Let's say that they actually had a study, and they said that 70% of people had better teeth from using Colgate rather than Crest. Um, And then, so that might be research and data to support this right here. Okay. It might even be professional testimony from a dentist or somebody that knows the topic. Okay. It's got to be somebody that knows the topic and understands the topic for it to be professional testimony. It might be 3 or 4 dentists say this, promote Colgate. And the fun, I'm saying, I don't even know why I chose Colgate because most of the time I use Crest, but hopefully you're getting my point. So backing you may find, and it will help support what you're saying is, this is true, this actually supports it as well. Your research, data, professional testimony that actually supports your reasons. Okay. Now, counterclaim. This is Claire eats worms before counting counterclaim. This is remember when we talked about what the argument writing is, showing both sides with a slant? That's what this is. You've got to show what the other side says so that they understand the argument itself, right? If you only show one side, you're not entirely showing the argument and choosing a side. So the counterclaim, you're going to acknowledge what the other side believes. And you put it into your paper so that you can, Claire eats worms before counting rainbows, rebut it. Rainbows is rebuttal. This is where you discredit that counterclaim and say why that's not the best claim to have. Okay? So Claire eats worms before counting rainbow. This is the other side, and this is why they're wrong. Okay? Now, let me tell you a little something about 6th grade. 6th grade, if you're watching this, I think that's great. Claire eats worms before counting rainbows. 7th grade is actually whenever the counterclaim and the rebuttal come into play. But that doesn't mean that you can't know about it too. 6th grade, really in 6th grade, all you have to do is show one side. In 7th grade, you move to showing both sides with the slant. So we changed for 6th grade, Claire eats worms backwards. This is what you would try to get. Again, backing if it's there. Now, counterclaim and rebuttal, 7th grade, you need to have this. This is part of our standards. This is part of the 7th grade standards. 6th grade, this is part of your standards. Counterclaim and rebuttal. So, but 6th grade, if you can add a counterclaim and rebuttal, that's not a bad thing. High flyers, go for it. Go for it. Try it. It's fine. If you can say what the other side would say and why, and then find a way to rebut it. Okay. So now let me tell you what I'm about to show you. I took an issue and I created something, and I created what I call as a skeleton. In other words, it's not written in essay form yet. I just wanted to show you how to come up with something. But the issue that I have is totally made up. I don't have a passage to go with it. We're pretending I had a passage to go with it. So any evidence I have is not real. It's just coming from my brain, okay? And maybe something I've read at some point or my own personal experience because of, I've lived a little while. So this is the topic that is all made up in what I'm about to show you. The issue is, would delaying school start time help students perform better? Would starting school later help students perform better? Now we're going to pretend I've read my passage like I would on a state test. I've read my passage and now I have a claim. And because I've got to make sure I know my claim before I can find evidence to support that claim, before I can give reasons why this evidence is good, before I can find backing to show why my reasons are good. And my counterclaim and my rebuttal. I would have to have read it to be able to come up with the ideas for my paper. Okay. So I've got my claim. So let's say that I've made a decision after reading the passage. And I have decided that my claim is going to be, because I'm going to be talking about middle and high school, because you're middle school, middle and high schools should delay their start times to 9 a.m. so that students get instruction during the times that are most beneficial to their learning. Now, I need to prove this by what I'm saying. They should start it later. This would be an argument of policy. An argument of policy, because the policy for most schools starting is between 7 and 8 a.m., right? I'm saying we need to change the policy because students should get instruction during the times that their best learning can occur, okay? And that would be after 9 a.m., I'm saying, after I've read my article. Now I've got to prove that. So now I've got to hunt for evidence to support my claim. So again, I did not get this from any article, but we're going to say that I had this great reliable source, this article that said that a study showed that significant improvement in student academic performance occurred after 9 a.m. Okay? So I'm going to use. What else might I use? Maybe it says that growing kids need 1.5 more hours of sleep than adults do to perform at their best because of biology, because of where teenagers are, preteens and teenagers are in their growth. They need something different than adults do. And so this would also maybe give them a couple of extra hours of sleep time. Okay. So this is going to be my evidence. Okay. I want to give you a tip on evidence. If I really decided that this was, after reading it, that this was going to be my claim, and then I'm reading it for what evidence will support this idea, correct? Then I would need to highlight anything in the passage that would support what I'm trying to say needs to happen, okay? And I think of it as at one time, I don't know if if I've said this, if you've watched any of my other videos, but I was an English teacher, but I was also a basketball coach. So I always thought of finding evidence kind of like having tryouts for a team. Anything in the passage, the entire passage, every sentence was potential evidence for me to use. But not every sentence in there needed to be on my basketball team. It might have been good information for something else, but not every sentence in there was going to be a basketball player. So I would highlight the evidence that best supported what type of team I was trying to create. In this case, I need a team that will show that starting school later is good. So I would highlight everything in there that I thought supported that idea. Everything in my passage. And basically whatever I highlight made the first cut. But whenever I actually start writing my paper, I'm going to narrow it down, and I'm going to go in and I'm going to pick from my paper the all-star evidence, the evidence that I know is the best in that passage that will really drive home what I'm trying to say. Okay? So we're going to say that this was my all-star evidence, and this is what's going to go into my paper. Okay? So now I'm here. Again, I wrote the same evidence up here. And how can I warrant it? This is my evidence. Claire eats worms. Warrant is just reasons. What are my reasons for choosing this evidence? Well, adults and children are different, I might say. I might acknowledge something because this is my commentary. This is my chance to let my voice be heard through my writing. It's not somebody else. This comes from the passage. This is not me. I've borrowed this. Now this is me. These are my reasons. Studies show significant improvement in student academic performance after 9 a.m. Well, why is that? What's my reason? Because adults and children are different. If school is meant to educate and prepare kids for the world, then adults need to consider when kids are most productive when creating school schedules. Now, that would definitely hit this, but now I might also need to come up with something that supports the sleep. I might say, and just the mere fact of moving it back moving school start time back an hour or two could give those kids that extra hour or two that they need in order to be at their best. So this warrant is just your reasons. This is your voice coming through and explaining why that you chose that evidence. Okay, Claire eats worms before. Now we're back to backing. Now we're back to backing. Oops, that's the wrong one. Okay, Claire eats worms before backing. So if I happen to have an article that contained research, data, professional testimony, anything like that, then now I'm going to try to utilize that in it. Okay, so I might be able to include achievement data from the study. What does the data say? If there was a study, what did it say? I might be able to include testimony from a school personnel, a teacher, who's taught in both at both times, earlier and later, and see what the teacher said. Did she see a significant improvement? If she didn't see a significant improvement, I don't need to use that because that doesn't support my claim. But is there a student who just changing the time really let their academics take off because they were now in a better learning situation than they were before? Could be able to use that because it would personally affect that kid. Okay. And then, of course, if this is still evidence, because backing is a form of evidence, I would need again to warrant it. I would need to tell you the reasons I've used that. This is backing up my other warrant, my warrants, but still explain why this evidence is good, why this backing is good information. And basically all I do is I develop the argument that children and adults are different, especially when it comes to prime working and learning time. I do know this to be true. Whenever I was a teenager, I slept later. It just, whatever. Now I'm up early. It's just your bodies change as you grow. And so do your sleep habits. Okay. And what you need changes. So in this case, I would develop that argument. Okay. Now we're down to the counterclaim. I've got to, in 7th grade, in 6th grade, if you want to, acknowledge what the other side is saying. What would be the other side's claim? It's my counterclaim, it's their claim, would be that others might say that a later start time would not ensure higher student achievement. Okay? So they're saying that doesn't ensure that. That is not 100% starting it any later. So their reasons might be, number one, achievement is based off of ability and determination, not what time the school day starts. So they're saying it's based off of natural ability and basically how the desire a kid has to be successful, not when they're in school. Okay. Now, if for every one of these reasons, I need a rebuttal. If I have one reason, I need one rebuttal. If I have 2 reasons, I need 2 rebuttals. That's not one sentence. It's one rebuttal, however many sentences it takes to get to that rebuttal. So here it goes. So if achievement is based off of ability and determination, not what time the school day starts, my rebuttal might be ability and determination certainly contribute to success. But why not give students the schedule that allows their abilities and determinations to be at their best? School is for students. So the schedule needs to be what works best for them. So that would work for here. If I'm saying that achievement is based off of ability and determination, they're saying like this wouldn't help. Well, I'm acknowledging that ability and determination certainly help in a kid's success. But that if we know that moving the start time back would help them really soar, and that their natural abilities and their determination to even work better for them, we should do it. Now, another reason that they might say this is that kids may sleep later. Kids may sleep later, but if they also go to bed later, sleep would still be an issue. Okay. So They're saying that if you move it back, if you move the starting time back, what's to say that they won't stay up later? Because now they're starting at 9. Well, why wouldn't they stay up an hour or two later, and not get any more sleep? Well, that's a good one. So how could I rebut that? I'd come in and I would say, schools cannot control when students go to bed. I'm going to acknowledge that, but but they can look at the data to see what works best for students. And if adapting the schedule to fit student needs is because adapting the schedule to fit students is something that they can control. So that would be my point to drive home. They're saying we can't, if sleep's still going to be an issue, they're still going to be tired. Well, I'm going to say, let's control what we can control. We can't control when they go to bed, but we can control what we're trying to do to help them be their best. Okay? Okay, so I called this a skeleton for a reason because I just wanted you to see kind of the parts and what they might look like in an essay. And Claire eats worms before counting rainbows. Claim, evidence, warrant, backing, counterclaim, rebuttal. Those are the 6 parts of an argument. Now, please remember that you're the middleman. A good writer looks at an issue through a logical lens, not an emotional one, and makes his or her case accordingly. So, the question to you is, what do the facts clear up about the issue? Okay, I'm hoping that some of this is kind of sinking in. I'm hoping you kind of have a grasp on how this works, and because now we are at the end of part 3, and I'm going to come back one more time, and I'm going to take everything that I pulled. Those were my parts, the parts of the argument, and I actually put them in an essay form. And so there is. I apologize. So that you will have an idea about what an argument might look like. Okay? See you soon.